So I have a 36-inch roll of Pro Nano 20. This is a ceramic film. We're gonna use this for our demos today on shrinking the back of this Camry. Now, I've seen quite a few people ask about this over time in the group, so I want to make a really good video. These corners swoop a little bit more than your average car. There's a couple different ways that you can make this easier. It's really not a hard back window to shrink, but there's always a couple rules that you need to follow when you're shrinking. So if you follow those rules, you'll have an easy time shrinking this back window. So the first thing is that we already have this prepped. We put dryer sheet on this, and we have it outlined with glass aid. So if anything, ignore the glass aid, but put snuggle dryer sheet, let it dry, and then put your film on. The film is liner side up right now. We're gonna figure out where our center point is, and we're just gonna tack it. And then same thing on this side. So I wanna make sure I overlap where I tacked it. So this is flat from here. So I'm gonna go to that, stretch out my film, pull it flat, and then just tack it down. And see that dryer sheet then keeps it stuck in place. We're gonna cut out the excess film, and I'm gonna use a safety cutter to do that. You can use a knife. Safety cutter I like because it's safe and fast. And we're gonna cut this out short of the trunk lid. See how it just zips around? It's lovely. And then on the sides, you can keep it closer to the sides, but overlapping a little past isn't a big deal. I'd say don't go wider than 2 inches on the side though. And then you can save this piece for a rainy day, or the quarter windows if they fit, which on this one, they should definitely fit. So, 2 different ways to approach this. If you do a 50-50 split, what you're effectively doing is causing the same amount of film to be shrunk out the bottom and shrunk out the top, but there's more curve here. So you don't necessarily have to do a 50-50 split. You could pull this back up and go 60, like 60% out the top, or 60% out the bottom, 40% out the top, and now I don't have as much film that I have to shrink around this corner. That makes the corner easier. Obviously we have a little bit more film bunched up here now, and this slants in, but this is gonna be an easier area to shrink. I'm gonna do the traditional 50-50 split, but I bring that up so you guys can you don't always have to go with a 50-50 split. You wanna just go with whatever makes the window easiest on you. So we'll go with the regular 50-50 split, and I'm gonna grab my heat gun. Turn this puppy on, heat gun. We're gonna let this get hot, so just let it warm up for a few seconds. So we'll start with the bottom here. We wanna heat the film at a 45-degree angle, so this is pointed in the direction that we're shrinking, but you only need to shrink until you get these little ocean waves. So if I heat it up and I don't really see them, then I probably didn't heat it up quite enough. So we're gonna go with a little bit more heat, make them a little bit more pronounced. That's a lot better. I can see these little ocean waves. So you're gonna match your shrinking card up and push them in the direction that they would go if it was an ocean, and these are little waves headed into the shoreline. But you'll notice here, this starts curving at an angle. So instead of trying to push this straight forward, I'm gonna angle this. Card goes in this direction now. I still see that wave. Card keeps going. And then that goes right out the side. And then we keep shrinking. So we only press the film out to where we shrunk to. So wherever I see these lines, that's good. And then I'm gonna stop here. So I would push these forward right to there. And then I would stop because this part hasn't been shrunk yet. So then we're gonna keep going. heat the film until you see it start pulling. There we go. See that line? Press it forward. The tape doesn't mess up your shrinking. It can if you're not that familiar with shrinking. So you could always try shrinking without it and then introduce it later. So if you're using your own car as the practice car to learn, you don't need to use the tape necessarily, but this is raised a little bit. So it could throw some people off, but you can definitely shrink with it. So this corner is more curved, but we're gonna do the exact same thing. Heat gun on high, 45 direction, in the 45 angle in the direction that we're going. And then right there, see we get a little bit right there. This is where people mess up heat shrinking the most. So early on, you'll start to see those little waves and you push them forward. And what people do is, because this is tacked flat, they'll want to keep pushing this up straight. But what that does is that forces film up this way and it starts pinching your top corner. These waves are angled this way. So we want to push them out that way. So match your card up with the direction that it's facing, and then it's going to take some of this finger and pull it down a little bit. So watch. You can lift this so it doesn't bind here at all. Knock that little wave out the side, and then this, flatten that out. This corner then gets a little bit flatter. But the most important thing is that you're not taking those curves and bunching it upwards into this finger right here. So still heating up until it starts to form those little waves. And you can see it even more now. See how they're still curving? So instead of pushing it up like this, we're gonna push it out the side. So that curve, these go straight up because that's the direction they're facing. These little waves would continue to go this way. And then all of a sudden this whole corner just basically lays down. So it's a little bit of, you shrink some and then it adjusts that corner. And it's just a little bit of back and forth with that, and then that corner lays down. So we'll grab a heat gun and do the other side. Why are you shrinking the outside of the car? Because we're going against the rules, man. If you can shrink that on the inside of the car, I'll buy you the car. Tint goes on the inside. It does? Shit. I never heard that one. Okay, we're gonna go a little bit faster on this one. On this side, just to illustrate this a little better. So these lines facing sideways, push them forward. And then this one has that little swoop to it. So it starts going out at a little bit of an angle. Those are the main rules to pay attention to. You're not shrinking anything out the side. And you always want to wait till you see little ocean waves form. Little hurricane ocean waves. So this is Jamaica, and then that's the hurricane coming in. Right like that. I'll shrink a little farther this time so you can see those pronounced a little bit more. See, there we go. This is that, whoa, sorry. This is those little waves, and they're coming in at an angle. They're not going up in this direction. This Jamaica's over here, and it's going straight in. Crash. Why, when I shrink, do I get all 3 sections and then I mess up the last one? I don't know. The weird thing about tinting, maybe start with 2 that you know you're good at, and then do opposite of the 3rd one. And then see if you're just doing something different on that side. Sometimes, what would happen to me, not necessarily with shrinking, but I would develop some sort of like problem habit that would ruin my tint. And I would keep making like the same mistake over and over again. And then eventually you just kind of work your way out of it. But if you know you can do like the bottom 2 corners and then the passenger side top corner, maybe try the bottom 2 corners and go to the driver's side and see if you still mess that up. Because it could be just how you're holding the heat gun. It could be that little tip that we talked about. Make sure you are letting, you shrink some, so you lock your side down flat, you shrink some film, and you start pushing that out, and then you look at those little waves, and it often will very early on readjust this corner, and then you go up a little more, readjust the corner, go a little more, readjust the corner.